You know, as an April Fool's Day joke, it's really best to leave this entire movie on the cutting room floor. Don't even, they shouldn't have even released it. It's a January movie. They should have just made the movie and been like, you know what, that's not good enough to release. So, I guess that's my prelude to how this review is gonna go. Morbius is the latest attempt from Sony to make a movie in a Spider-Man live-action universe without the help from Marvel Studios, and it's another epic failure on their end. Dangerously ill with a rare blood disorder and determined to save others suffering from his same fate, Dr. Michael Morbius attempts a desperate gamble. What at first appears to be radical success soon reveals itself to be a remedy potentially worse than a disease. I just want to say this. All jokes aside, I cannot believe that this movie is actually being released. This was like the New Mutants or the No Time to Die of movie releases, where it had a release date, and then because of the pandemic, it got pushed back, and then it kept getting delayed even further. And so now it's out. But after having witnessed the movie and how bad the movie actually is, I'm thoroughly convinced that this is a huge April Fool's Day prank by Sony, releasing a cut of this movie this bad. I'm convinced that there's a much better cut of this movie out there somewhere. About 80% of the things you see in the trailer aren't in the movie. Jared Leto is very bland as Michael Morbius. Adria Arjona seems like she is sleepwalking throughout the entire movie. Everybody is just here to just be like, hey, I just want to film some scenes. I have nothing to do. I just want to collect a decent paycheck. It's a paycheck movie for everybody involved. Even Matt Smith, the one who has been getting the most praise out of everyone in this movie, I didn't even think he was that good. He went over the top when he had to go over the top, but even those moments, his acting in those moments where he goes over the top didn't convince me to be like, oh yeah, this is a movie that's so bad it's good. This is just a movie that is so bad it's bad. The visual effects are literally ripped from a movie from 2002. There are balloon people special effects in here. CGI looks very dated. It looks very unoriginal. Seriously, visual effects from movies from 1932 look better than what you see in Morbius. Those movies are almost 90 years old. I guess the thought going into this movie was, let's hire the guys who wrote Dracula Untold. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I don't mind Dracula Untold as a movie. I think it's perfectly fine. I think it gets a little bit too much hate, but I mean, was the thought process for this movie? These guys wrote Dracula Untold, they know how to do a vampire movie, so let's just hire them to write a vampire movie. Just because you did a decent enough job on one doesn't mean you're gonna stick the landing with another vampire movie, and the story is just so bland. There's nothing interesting that happens. A very hollow, there's nothing interesting to follow, there's nothing interesting that happens. The plot is just so absurd, if there even is a plot, and there's very minimal pieces here in terms of an actual narrative and an actual story or plot line. It just feels so one note, if you know what I mean. Just like everything else in this movie. The characters are worse than cookie cutter. They're worse than being as thin as Swiss cheese. I do not know how to describe the characterization for any of the characters in this movie. There are characters that just come and go, like Adria Arjona's character I thought was written out of the movie at one point, and then all of a sudden she comes back in about 20 minutes later, and I said, oh yeah, shit, you're in the movie, I forgot about that. Same with Jared Harris's character. I don't know the characters' names other than Michael Morbius. Like, Matt Smith plays a guy named Milo, but he's also called Lucian, and I immediately thought of the Underworld movies, which are much, much better. Even the terrible ones are much, much better than this. And it just reminded me, I was like, I could just be watching Underworld right now. I could be watching something like Daybreakers right now. And fuck! I could even be playing that really mediocre vampire video game that came out a few years ago, Vampire. Like, seriously, man, that's a better vampire story than this movie. Let's take it back to the visual effects for a minute, because the movie even knows that the visual effects are bad, so they have to cut away anytime like Morbius is flying through the air at some points, because they're just like, it just looks so terrible. Like, everybody's gonna call us out on it. We put no effort into this movie. What is even the point? You do have to still try. get that you're not part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you're not part of a DC Cinematic Universe, but this entire new Spider-Man live-action universe that Sony wants to create just needs to find its footing, or else everybody's just going to be out the door. Nobody's going to care about Venom 3 eventually. Venom 1 was terrible. Venom 2 was okay for a one-time watch. Never want to watch it again. And Morbius just it's shit. It's schlock. When they actually do visual effects on Jared Leto's face, it's easily not prosthetics, and if it's prosthetics, they're really bad prosthetics, but you could tell the face is CGI'd, and it looks like Red Skull met Gabriel from Malignant, and they had like a demented, deformed son. It was just a discount baby of theirs. You're Sony Pictures. You're a big studio putting out a blockbuster that is based on a comic book. You have an unlimited budget. Use it to your benefit. Also, the directing in this movie, it's nothing you haven't seen before. Daniel Espinosa, it's the director of Safe House, so he's gonna tell the editor to, you know, do some quick cuts to hide those visual effects, but also do quick cuts where you can't see the action. He puts no energy into the action sequences. There's barely any action in the movie, and when the action does throw down, because there isn't any energy in those sequences, it lacks a sense of fun and excitement, and it just becomes a huge snore fest. And let's talk about how he directs extras, because the extras in this movie I actually found pretty hilarious. There's like one that gets bitch scratched across the neck by Morbius, and it takes him 13 seconds to fall down. I'm like, dude, you just got ganked. Your neck is like bleeding. Like, fall down already. So it takes him 13 seconds to fall down, another 13 seconds to die. I'm like, Jesus Christ. These people do not know how to act. There's another like long shot in a hallway. Somebody's getting strangled and like they're like slowly like writhing for pain, like trying to, I'm like, you should be fighting for your life right now. And instead you just look like, yeah, I'm just gonna let this happen to me. Just let me die. My life sucks anyway. Seriously, this movie needed better direction. It needed more effort from the actors. It needed better actors. It needed a better screenplay. It needed better visual effects, and it needed a better musical score. It's a very familiar musical score. We'll put it that way. It's nothing you haven't heard in a movie like this before. And I just gotta say, I hope Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard are collecting those royalties after they file their lawsuit for one scene in this movie that completely samples the Dark Knight trilogy theme. The most blatant, obvious use of like, oh, we don't have music for this scene, let's just rip it from a better movie. You don't even have to worry about composing music for that like 30 seconds, okay? And of course, it's a scene involving a tank of bats. Morbius has no redeeming qualities. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Morbius definitely belongs in popcorn hell, sprinkled with a pile of dog shit. This is the worst movie of the year, and it's because of how much money went into this movie, because it is from a major studio, because it is billed as a major blockbuster. I haven't seen a movie this embarrassing in a long time. This is not only the worst movie of the year, it is not only the worst comic book movie in 10 years, it's one of the worst movies ever made. I hate to be completely honest with you guys. You guys have seen this embarrassing train wreck. I want some feedback as to what you thought of this Morbius movie that everybody was not excited for. Drop me some feedback in the comment section below. I'll leave my link to my website in the description below as well. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex Madden, and I'll see you at the movies somewhere.